I usually find myself with my arranging asking several of those questions to students because not to toot my own horn, but I'm incredibly good at playing downstrokes. So it's easy for me to like play things
That's
and then go into like a really low tap height.
that's a
But
skill
I'm
that many people can't play anymore. So that's a good skill.
That is
and
that's
that,
That's
100%
probably the
true.
skill we work the most on is
And
downstroke.
that is a shout out to Eric Ward Pedagogy from like
Yeah,
my high
Eric
school
Ward is,
instructor.
yeah, come
So
on, man. Eric
um,
Ward is the man.
Mike and I have lineage from Eric Ward
Our
drumming
drumming family tree.
tree. um, but yeah, so many of the things that I do, I'm like, oh, this feels easy to do, and they're like, this is super hard to like stop. I'm like, all right, well, we'll modify it, but
It's
um,
It's funny you say
but
that, Colin, too. You agree with him on that. It's you guys have some of the best accent to tap differentiation and have in like the cadets lines you taught in Boston now. It's just boom, 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 accent tap, and it's incredible. The fact that the kids can do that and you guys get them to play with that, it's defined, but it comes off as the sound is still big, even at the tap height, which means there's relaxation, there's openness in the hand and the grip pressure and or lack thereof pressure or whatever. Like I've always impressed every single year. Like, do you guys talk about that a lot? Do you harp on the accent tap height, or does it kind of just happen naturally
No,
within
it's
the
not
system that you
natural.
guys teach?
No, it's all the time. I mean, the hardest stuff to play, if you look at the notes on the page, most of the notes are taps. So that's the part that's the
Yep.
hardest to clean.
Yep.
That's what we spend most of our time on. And this group, we spent a lot of time, I mean, all the groups, but this group was able to really train because we did have more time to train. We did a lot of grace note work, bead down. A lot of thing that's in vogue now is bead up. So if I'm playing like a bounce rudiment, any kind of flam tap, any type of touch of anything that's like open in the hands, the bead can be up on the tap height. It can be more like a mezzo forte tap height. But when you're playing, fast double flam drags or something that's clearly a downstroke, you've got to get the grace notes down. So we did a
Yeah.
lot of like half inch like grace note control stuff and just working on that part is flams. To me, a flam, and I'm only giving you my opinion. There's many different philosophies. My opinion is a double stop is not a flam. The reason I don't like double stops is that a double stop deadens the rebound on the head.
Yeah.
So if you're
Builds
playing
the
like
momentum.
a floppy,
Yep.
if you're playing floppies or something that requires constant rebound, like a dribble on a basketball, you can't do that if you're playing double stops. The flam, the chut, actually helps propel that rebound into the hands. The drop catch, I call it drop
Absolutely.
catch. So that's like a big drop catch is a big thing that we spent a lot of time on. And this group was in a number of years of incarnation of working on that. That's the thing. Like the progression of Boston started in 17. We changed a lot of everything that they were doing, and we had some great kids that stayed on. When I went there in 16, 17, we didn't cut anybody. It was like you're all in the line, but you have to adhere to these parameters of preparation. And they were the ones that really made a big push for us going into 18. And a lot of those kids aged out, and then we were rebuilding a little bit in 19, and then in 2021, those kids all stayed. We were lucky that we had a very good returning class from 20 to 21. In fact, everybody pretty much stayed, so we were able to really train and get that stuff because that takes a lot of time. In cadets,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say it took us probably until the first 4 or 5 years that I was there where we really developed the finger control to be able to play, a fast triplet roll into paradiddles into some other kind of, skill set, being able to change the touch on a dime. And that's the thing that I love about great drum lines is where there is an unpredictability to how you can change dynamic and still play content, whether you're playing super high and there's content, not just slams, not just a rim shot at the end of the phrase, but you're playing something at fortissimo that is like a rudimental part, something that has really a difficult skill set. And then you can go down to nothing and play something down low. And that, to me, the dynamic range is what makes battery musical. It makes it interesting. And I can't say that every drum line I've ever had can do that. It's hard to do. It takes kids coming back multiple years to kind of to be able to get a command over that.
Well, you've achieved it, because most of your groups, after, like you said, took a few years of cadets, and you're now been at Boston for a handful of years. That dynamic contrast, I think your all's dynamic contrast is almost unparalleled by just about anybody out there, and that includes Vanguard, BD, like just your loud. The difference between your all's loud and soft, and the fact that it stays open and you can change it on a dime, like you were talking about, that variation is just so satisfying as an age out, as an alumni, of course, as just a fan. Like, it's just that's it. And I've really come to appreciate what you all do. And like you said, it took a few years, because when you first got to Boston, it was like some stuff was kind of choked, and it wasn't kind of that big open sound you're used to from these top groups. And like you said, it takes time to evolve and put your system in place, and it's obviously in place now. And the fact that it came to fruition, whether you want to say it came to fruition in 19 or in this weird COVID-induced year we just had, it just speaks volumes to the consistency.
It definitely came to fruition, this year, because the kids had stayed. There was I would say there's a big component of 19 that came back, mm-hmm. and then the kids that we added could train really almost an extra year. Yeah. So that really helped us get an edge on that idea. And, look, the groups that you're mentioning, I mean, they have their way they do things that's phenomenal. What I love about drum corps, especially when I marched, if you watched Marty Hurley's drum lines with Phantom Regiment, or you watched Tom Hannum or Tom Monk's lines in the late 80s, early 90s cadets, or if you watched, Vanguard, Glenn Crosby, Ralph Hardiman, you watched that, all the Blue Devils, you watched what they were doing with Tom Float, and then you watched what they were doing with Dave Glide and with Scott. It was you could listen in a lot and go, that's who they are. And that's why I think what made you're talking about Star of Indiana, that's why Star of Indiana was interesting, because they were so different. There's no drum line that sounded like that. So if you do what you do, if you cook, I always use food as a reference. If you make your genre of food at the highest level, that's a Michelin rating. Give it a Michelin rating. It's excellent. It can be 100%. That's my thing with the judges, is that you hope that, and that's the idea. The idea of adjudication is that what you do, if you do it to the highest level, and it has all those demands and all that effect and all that musicianship, credit it. It doesn't have to be. We never want a copycat league. That should never be what we're trying to do, even though we all are influenced by each other, and that's a natural thing.
Yeah.
But the style of drum lines, I love that it's different. And we have our style, and it was fun to be able to do that. I'm telling you, my biggest mistake was not kind of elongating our warm-ups and getting into some other things, because that's what I used to get excited about, and it was fun to get into that this year, and it really did open up our skill sets a lot. And that was a real learning thing for me this year. That was fun. But it's neat. It's great to see the Cavaliers, to see these different groups. Everyone's doing their thing a little bit differently. Tuning is a big part of that. We were talking about tuning. Maybe that's something interesting to talk about, because tuning.
Let's go there.
Tuning is a very different thing depending on the show, depending on the drill, depending on the drums that you're playing on, depending on the
You were talking about like developing the members over multiple years, but I feel like that's a thing too that designers and technicians and caption heads develop also within the same program. Like, all right, you switch from group A to group B, like we now have this equipment, we have this head supplier, this drum supplier, this stick supplier, like figuring out the timbres and what works, and also like figuring out what works within like that combination of things. And Mike and I'm not going to shy away from it, in like 17, I would say maybe even 18, have been like, oh, Boston, like, don't really, it's not my flavor of snare tuning or bass tuning or blah, blah, blah. But then we made the comment for 2021 of like, dude, their snares sound way different. Like, it sounds clear and the space between the rhythms are there, but still like a wetness to the drum that sounds like a snare drum, instead of maybe like, this is not indicative of anything, but overly dry. And then you said, yeah, you guys caught it. We have a new snare drum. So like, take us through that, like development of that, how it impacts like the tuning for your writing, just the drum itself, like, and just tuning as it relates to the ensemble and the arrangement?
Well, to talk specifically about this year, and I'll only speak on the way that I tune, because there's been many groups that have that prototype. There's a prototype Yamaha drum that we're using. I don't know if they want me to talk about it, but we'll talk about it. And we had developed this idea over a long period of time. And we had a kind of a symposium with a bunch of Yamaha artists at Yamaha, and they're amazing people. They're amazing. Their drum their stuff is amazing. But what I wanted, and what a lot of us wanted, was better airflow around the snare unit. So I'll kind of dummy it down a little bit, because the biggest change to me was that we had added some ventilation around the snare bed. And what that allowed us to do, it basically it gives you a little bit more clarity. The air disperses quicker. You don't get that pillow sound. A lot of times, like when I was at Cadets, what we were doing, and some of this isn't even the drum, it's just the way the music was. I mean, listen to this kind of shows we were doing at Cadets when I was there. In 2011, we were running, for 11 minutes in crazy places on the field. And
2008,
we're playing
all that Frank Tekeli music.
Yeah, we were
Nitro
playing,
and Vesuvius.
Yeah, that was 07 actually, the year that you're talking about.
Okay.
That was, but 07 is another great example of like where you have to consider, the speed of what you're playing. If I tune wide open on the bottom head with 9 snares and we're running at 208 beats a minute, and you're playing triplet roll figures, you can't have the snares wide open. You're just not going to hear the clarity. The players can't hear what they're playing. It's too fast. Now that's a choice. That's why, I'll just talk drum corps again. That's why the Blue Devils have a very dry sound. They play very fast. They have these figures that jump out at you that are very quick. So fast forward to, let's keep it on task here, this conversation. The difference with having those air holes is it really created a clarity on the snare unit that was different. Like I think we had a little bit of stick tape, and that was it. We kept all the guts for the first time ever with the Yamaha drums. We were able to have all the guts on the drum, and
love that. I love that.
And it really made a huge difference. It was one of those, like we took them out of the box, we tuned them up, and it was like, okay, this is way different, and we can kind of go there. It was like that, and it was really, to me, my interpretation. I'm just being clear. My interpretation was that those air holes around the snare unit really made a huge difference. And that enabled us to kind of open it up a little bit. And we still played really fast, and you could hear the clarity. So that was a really, really big moment for us with the tuning for this year.
That's amazing. And you go back to what you said, you're always learning. I learned something new right now, because I had never known or considered, because I've been critical person. I had been critical of the dryness of the tuning that you used at Cadets in various years, at Boston up to this year. It wasn't my I guess flavor of snare drum tuning, I guess, but hearing you put it in those terms of, look, we're going so fast and we're playing such a high density of notes at a high speed that if we tuned more wet or just a little thicker or wider, it would all sound muddled. They're running around the field, and I literally, and I don't want to say I'm embarrassed to say I'm just now learning this, but that blows my mind, because it's literally just like a light bulb moment for me. It just happened. I was like, wow, that really does make sense.
Well, I'm telling you what we thought about on my cadet staffs. And I think Tom Ungst had, he had done, decades with that style of playing. Jay Bocook writes visceral music.
Yeah.
And George Hopkins was programming a lot of the style of those drum corps, and it was aggressive. And Jeff Sacknick was the drill writer. So you have very physical shows, and you're running around, and you had to get your content in when you're in the back sideline running out of position, playing some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So that was how you could compete with the Blue Devils, they were more modern. They would stage something, and they would do movement, but they would be in one spot where you could really sample it. You had to sample us running, on the back sideline playing a fast roll or whatever we were doing. And I think Tom Ungst, I'm throwing him in there. I think some of his revelations over time, he figured out that style of how to do that. And I really followed suit with that when I was at Cadets, because we were playing the same style of music.
Yeah.
It wasn't like when I started writing at Cadets that we changed the style of the drum corps. We were still doing a lot of that same stuff, and that tuning worked for the players because they could hear. You're changing the form. You're running. It's crazy. You've got a big snare line.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. So much sense.
Yeah. In 2009, BD's over here standing on chairs, and we're running our ass around the field. So of course we got to tune our drums different. So
you were in Crown, right? I remember you telling me you were in Crown 09. So that show was tuned a lot the same way. It's not as a musician. I like the open tuning. I like how Paul tunes the snares. I like that open tuning. But the way that we are playing, in those days, I think that it was optimum to do that. But when you disperse the air hole, the air hole and getting the air out of the drum faster, that really helped a lot of that tuning. It really, really, really did. So that's a big part of that. It'd be fun to do. It'd be fun for you to watch a high cam version of. I'm just using Angels and Demons as an example because that show, we did play Tekeli. We played Angels in the Architecture.
I love that show.
And that show was very star-like. It had a lot of transparency. We were framing brass parts all the time, and that dryness of sound was optimum for how it blended with the drum with the brass. A lot of these drum lines that you listen in the parking lot that you would say that's an amazing snare sound. Maybe that doesn't work with the brass line. Like if I tune too low, it's going to get washed out with the brass. Like Gino Cipriani, who's another aside, he's my brother-in-law and my musical partner. Gino is, for those of you that don't know, he's the brass director at Boston. He was the brass director at Cadets for like 10 years that I was there, and then even beyond that. I think he went there in 2000. And he was at the Blue Devils before that. So this is like a brass icon. I got to make the brass sound good. So that dryness, you're popping these, it's like a big band drummer. I'm popping these, shots in the middle of spaces and these crazy intricate rhythms. You can't have a wide open snare tuning. It's not going to work. It's not going to work with that style. That being said, I'm excited to have a little bit more open tuning because what you can do is you can adjust your touch. We always adjusted our touch at Cadets, but you can really hear it clearly when you do it with a little more open tuning.
Mm-hmm.
That makes so much sense. Was there, I guess, in comparison to tuning or the same family tree, was there a reason then this summer that you went with the 8-inch Spock, the 8, 10, 12, 13, 14 as opposed to the 6?
I love that. First of all, you guys are so cool because you get into these small details. I love it because these are things that we think about. You're actually nailing the things that we talk about before the season starts as we're developing the music and whatnot. So the Blue Devils, I'm going to give a shout out to Tom Float's era, the Blue Devils. Everybody had, 2 6-inch drums, and they were doing like different setups. This is like, we're talking like,
they do 2 6-inch with 2 different heads or something like that.
Yeah, they would do stuff like that. But I'm going to go back to like Float's era. We're talking like, this is like 1990. Okay, so let's take 1990. Am I going too far back for you guys? No, you guys.
No. we had Pete Sappett on here. He told us all about
Pete
it.
Pete was on here. Whatever.
And those guys those were the. I don't think they would think this is derogatory. Those days, they would come out and just drum better than everybody, but they were on the 50-yard line. I'm actually showing a visual. They'd pull up and play the drum feature, and they're playing rudimental stuff. Inverted cheese. They're playing all this crazy stuff that was like amazingly clean, unison snare and tenor stuff. But they always used an 8-inch Spock drum, and what I liked about it was you could play. I used it for the first time at Cadets because we were playing floppy flams. We were playing a lot of like this flam literature, and I wanted them to be able to get on that drum and it to be like comfortable to play floppy flams or, all this crazy flam literature. And it spoke a little bit more demonstrative than a 6-inch drum. A 6-inch drum is a timbre. An 8-inch drum is a drum, and it has a drum sound. And that was what we went for. But it was a throwback really from what my memory was of those old Blue Devil tenor lines. And then we used it in Cadets for the flam literature. And then we brought it back because really the tenor line was like, we want to use an 8-inch. I said, yeah, it would kind of make sense because we were experimenting with some stuff that had, like that multi-gear roll they played in the feature. That was something that Daniel had envisioned. I kept saying to him, I said,
It was like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, it's like one guy's playing fours, one guy's playing like three, like
singles.
I don't even know, singling it. It was just nuts.
Yeah, it was like one was a roll, one was a singles, one was 2-4. Two guys were 2-4s, and that part we had tried that before, that idea, and I wasn't. I didn't love it because you couldn't see it from like where the judges would be, but we weren't being judged. So I said, "Who cares? It's for the parking lot. Have fun with it." So it was kind of fun doing it, but because it's hard to, like, when you watch, you have to rewind. You need the lot footage to rewind and see what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
But that was definitely inspired. You know, Daniel was really adamant about wanting to try that, and the 8-inch drum really helped that kind of speak. But that's what the 8-inch drum for me was. Being a tenor player myself, the 2 drums was always cool, but I always felt like it just added a lot of extra weight, and I liked being centered with the technique as a tenor player. So having the drum in the center of your body, I like that. So that's why we use the 8-inch. But who knows what we'll use next year? I don't know. But the 8-inch is cool.
I'm not gonna lie, as a snare drummer trying to play on a 6-inch feels like I'm playing on a trampoline. I'm like, I can't control any of this shit.
Well, a lot of people use it as an accent drum. You know, they play a roll on it occasionally. They'll play rim shots and like accent patterns. But if you want to play content on it, you know, something that's really difficult, it's a lot. It speaks better on a bigger drum. That's what I love the 8-inch drum. I love it.
I had one friend say, I think it was maybe Andrew Kane, who may have been in your
he was in there 16.
I think he said if your spot drum has a like a, I don't know, a tune, it's too low. It just needs to be like, it just needs to sound like a random thing. He's like, if it sounds like a note, it's too low. You just gotta crank it.
and that's a lot how that drum is used in drum corps. But that's why the 8-inch was kind of cool, because it was really like another drum one. That's how I thought about it in the writing. You know,
Absolutely.
as opposed to keeping it like something that was, you know, just again, like this thing that jumps out of the texture. So,
yep.
I also that's where that came from.
On the topic of the quad line Boston, like, you guys are still using those like pancake mallets, like the saucer heads, like, instead of using.
That's another. Boy, you guys are really getting into some interesting ideas here.
I love it. Like, it's just the fullness. The openness.
Who said that mallets suck? Who said that we shouldn't use mallets?
I don't know. But the
are you guys also playing on pinstripes?
We are.
Yeah, hell yeah. Pinstripes.
We're not only playing on pinstripes, we use drum set pinstripes, which are the glued ones.
Nice.
Which is what we would use in the old days, because now you can't do that responsibly with a group that pays for the heads. So thank you to Remo, for sending us a billion heads. But you get more resonance out of those heads when they're glued, because with the crimp lock, there's like a machine that presses them in, with a million pounds of pressure into the rim, and that's what makes it more durable. The glued, but they also have a more resonance. So we use those for many years. All through my cadet years, we used them, before that.
When and why did the
people tried to abandon saucers because they were like, oh, it's too hard to control. We can't play high.
No, they're great. It's another timbre. In fact, I had talked to the great people at Vicfrith. We had a prototype of that for years that we were thinking about trying to put out there. I'm holding hope that we're going to put out that mallet soon at some point, because we use it. We use mallets. We use sticks a lot too. We use snare sticks a lot, and they have a certain sound. But the mallet, the cookie mallets are great. They have a completely different tonal quality. It's a very dark, resonant quality. And it's something that, as a player, again, it's something that I think is important to have in the mix. You can change mallets. You can use sticks 1 minute, you can use those the next minute. But we've gotten away. We've gotten away from those. And a lot of times, the blend, the sonority, if I'm using like a music term, the blend and balance and tuning of the tenors to snares, it's nice when you're playing a lot of unison stuff. And I like to write a lot of unison skill sets, because I was a tenor player. I used to get pissed when the snares were playing flams and we weren't. I go, we can play flams better than them. So I always try to write equality within, and even our bass line plays flams. I try to write equality with everybody playing the skill sets. So the mallet is really important in that.
Yeah, I feel like when, like my perfect blend, if everybody's using sticks, is like 8 snares, 5 quads, but also 5 quads is just a monster to clean, and like find 8 dudes or 5 dudes that can really throw down. So if you're busting out the mallets, you can go 9 and 4 and still almost achieve the same balance as the 8-5 if everybody's playing sticks. So I'm like, what are you doing?
I like the blend better with mallets. Quad to snare lines with the mallet parts just sound better to me. Just when it's in there and it's blended, it's just more full. It's more open. It's just a little deeper. It's just, I don't know. That's personal preference, subjective, but
warms my soul.
Yeah.
It depends on the writing. It depends. Another thing, I keep saying this, but we're talking DCI, so you have to think about what blends with the winds. Mallets, when you have like a tenor only with mellophones or tenor only with the horn line, or even tenor only with the pit, the mallet sound has less attack, more tone, and it blends really nicely. It's just another color that you can use. Somehow we got away from that, but I never did because I'm old school. So I like to use the mallets. And I think that even in the hands, it's kind of nice. The rebound is like max. It's like max rebound.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I feel like they hit the zones better because aren't the mallets shorter than the sticks?
Yeah, that's all fake news, man. Like I was a tenor player. I'll get on the drums and show these guys. They're like, no, you just pull your arms back slightly. When you have longer sticks. We use snare sticks when we play with sticks. We don't use a tenor stick. We use snare sticks because I like the full length of this snare stick on the tenors. Like even when I was developing like the stick a million years ago, I don't know when my stick was developed. It was a long time ago. But it works well on tenors because you have to pull back a little, but you get that maximum kind of torque out of the stick because it's a longer stick, and you can get maximum rebound and the tone is good. But mallets being shorter, you just adjust a little. You don't have to pull back at all. You are really comfortable because it fits the zones perfectly. So, but yeah, there's a mallet. I'm telling you, there's a mallet from Vic Firth coming out at some point. I don't know when. We're just trying to survive right now, and the companies have been. I have to give a shout out to all the companies. They've been phenomenal. You have people losing jobs. You have people going into other businesses. It's been they've maybe been hit the hardest. The companies, the people are artist representatives, the people that service the drum corps that work for these companies. I mean, it's been really difficult. You're being shut down. No one's buying equipment for a year and a half. It's been very difficult. So I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that we had a couple prototypes that were pretty sweet. So maybe next year we'll have something ready.
Shout out Brian Stocker. We're waiting, bro.
Yeah, we got to talk to Brian. He listens to this stuff. Come on, Brian. We got to work on this.
We've had him on here.
We've had him on. We love Brian. So
last question I have on my list.
I might have one unless this is the same question. Okay. So I'll let you go first, Evan.
Will Boston use a cowbell?
Oh, you took it from me. God damn it.
Now you don't mean a cowbell in the parking lot because I want to address the parking lot cowbell
in the parking lot.
That's what we're getting at.
The cowbell parking lot came about because there was a period of time where even though, like, try to hear me, I'm trying to be funny about this, but even though we were doing finals in a dome a million miles away from Military Park, we were not allowed to use a metronome. Think about how crazy that is. Who were you interfering with having a Dr. B going? Nobody. And there was just an arbitrary rule that you could not use a metronome. So that's where the cowbell came from. I was like, all right, well, we don't have a Met, so I'm going to use the cowbell. And then, the members being members, they like the hype because I get all fired up with the cowbell. I was banging the thing and going nuts. So then, like, I was fine to get rid of the cowbell. They were like, we want the cowbell. We want it in the lot. That's part of who we are. So, but it's funny because this year, we really used the Met, and then we really didn't. Like, Red's Rumba is not meant to have a metronome. Like, if you look at the music, there's places where I intentionally wanted to go faster and slower. Like, if you put a Met to it, it's never in time. It's not supposed to be. It's like a drum circle. It changes tempo. Like when it modulates into like a fast funk shuffle, it changes tempo. So it was something they did over muscle memory, much like the old school. Because when I marched, we didn't have metronomes, so you learn to feel. So we'd have the cowbell in a lot, but we never really used it because honestly, we can use the metronome. So when we needed the Met, we used that. When we didn't, they just used their ears and played. So, but that really came about not from my own parameter. It was just like because we couldn't use a Met, and we sort of used it. And that's really where it came from. I was never like something where I wanted to have a cowbell banging away, distracting the warm up. But then
You're
the
like a
members
mile away from the stadium that's in a dome.
yeah, but think about that arbitrary rule by DCI. It makes no sense. What? I mean, I can understand like a small show in Beverly, Mass, like on a Tuesday, you know, when you're like in someone's yard warming up. Okay, I got it. but you know, this was like the Blue Devils famously were getting penalties, you know, for using it when we weren't supposed to. And I really side with the Blue Devils. I think it's stupid. I think you should use whatever you want.
I agree.
For me, the metronome is a tool, not a way of life. We use it and we don't use it. Depends.
Yeah. Well, Evan, you stole my question. I hate you.
Oh man. Well, Colin, you have any like last shout outs?
Yeah.
I do. I have one last thing to say, just that our community is the best. It's all the drum corps, it's all the indoor lines, it's the marching bands. You know, my life is built around UMass as a college band. That's a different kind of genre. It's high school, you know, marching band. Some are BOA bands, some are not. Some are just bands that just are creating community. It's not about any specific. It's about our community and how hard that we all work. And regardless of recaps, regardless of any of the crap, it's about community and it's about doing something unconditional. And I think that our activity proved that over this time. And I'm just so proud of every individual player, every individual instructor. It's why I keep giving you all props, you know, for being people that are in your own busy life. You take time and do a podcast and you are promoting what we're doing. And it's just fantastic. And I hope that we never, ever get kind of high on the hog to the point where we're sort of, you know, forget that this can be taken away and we protect it and we keep doing what we're doing and keep pushing the envelope. Because with no judges and no adjudication, I felt like we all tried to push as hard as we could to keep this activity going forward for the members, who are the people that, again, we work for. And thank you to you both for promoting everything. That's really, I don't do a lot of these podcasts, but I was super excited and really blessed to come on here with you and just talk some drum corps because it's important. It changed my life. It's really everything about who I am. And I just can't thank you all enough for what you do, and let's keep it cranking.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end this thing. So, Colin, thanks for hanging out. Everybody, social media, whatever, Patreon, Lone Star Percussion. You all heard the spiel in the beginning if you're even still listening. After that, I don't want to...
They're still in.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to ruin that ending right there, so we'll just see everybody next time.
Peace.
Peace.